What is the unholy Trinity and why is it trying to destroy you? Well, to help you understand, let's go back to a real-life story back in the 1800s and a Hungarian doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis. Stay with me. This will make sense, I promise. He was a renowned doctor in that area, and at his hospital, one of the many things he participated in was helping mothers give birth. The problem was many of the mothers, after going to his hospital and specifically spending time with him in the delivery room, would die of diseases that happened after the birth. And so like any good doctor, he wanted to try to figure that out. So he actually left for a tour of other European hospitals to try to figure out the latest science. And when he left, the craziest thing happened. When he was gone, the survival rates of the mothers went up. And when he came back, the survival rates of the mothers went right back down. He could not figure out what was causing these mothers to develop post-birth diseases that would lead to their death. And he finally figured it out. And it's one of those things that is absolutely obvious to us today, but it wasn't back then because they didn't know. And he was actually one of the ones that made it known. Back in the 1800s, it was a huge rush of discovery for so many different scientific things. And one of the things that doctors were doing were they were operating on cadavers, bodies that had just deceased, because they were trying to find out as much as they could about the human body. And Ignaz Semmelweis was one of those who did that all the time. He would go down to the basement, a new cadaver would come in, and he would operate on it. And then a mother would come in to give birth, and so he'd have to go back to his day job, and he would go straight from the mortuary up to the delivery room, and he would give birth. And guess what? He wouldn't wash his hands, because he didn't know, as no one did, about the prevalence of diseases and germs and microscopic things that could transfer from a dead body onto his hands, onto a mother, and cause her death. And so once he figured out that correlation, he is one of the reasons why doctors wash their hands before they go into an operating room. And again, it seems so simple today, but it wasn't back then because they didn't quite understand things that they couldn't see and these microscopic organisms. That comes back to the unholy Trinity. I would argue that the unholy Trinity, they're the microscopic organisms. They're the parasites in the unseen world, destroying our relationships, destroying what God has for us, and destroying those that we love. The unholy Trinity is the world, the flesh, and the devil. And you might think, the who, the what, and the what? The world, the flesh, and the devil is the unholy Trinity. And it's so important that Jesus actually went out in one of the most famous passages that we know about his life, the temptation with the devil in the wilderness. It was not just him having a little quiet time for 40 days into the desert. And it was not just him battling the devil. It was actually him battling the entire unholy Trinity, the world, the flesh, and the devil. And what was at stake was his sinlessness so that he could be our sacrifice. And I think the reason he told the disciples so that they could write it down and tell us is so that we could have the information we need to battle and overcome the world, the flesh, and the devil. But think of this unholy Trinity as those unseen microscopic parasites, the disease that we cannot see but can absolutely kill us. It's the cancer that you can't see with the naked eye but would absolutely destroy you if it could. And this topic is so important, I can't just explain it in one YouTube video. So I've actually created an entire podcast teaching series called The Unholy Trinity, Understanding Your Most Dangerous Enemies. I'm going to put the links below and would love for you to go back if you haven't already and begin to listen to this teaching podcast as we really break apart and unpack Jesus' time in the wilderness to find out what he taught us about the world, the flesh, and the devil, and how to overcome this unseen force that wants to destroy us. Click the links below to check it out. Thanks.